So I have my own inclination, but I've read the books, so I know like what I feel it refers to.
Hmm.
So I'll refrain from it. What I will say
Ah.
though, what I will say though is the cinematographers have made a very direct point to show you the rats, and a lot of
Ooh.
scenes throughout the season, there's rats mysteriously like looking down upon Allison from her bedpost, or they're on top of Balerian's dragon skull, or they're coming up after Lenore got beat to death, and they married Rhaenyra, or Lenore's boyfriend rather, got beat to death, and there's blood on the floor, and the rats come up and starts drinking the blood. Like, there's definitely a rat thing going on here.
I did not notice that. So I will pay more attention now.
I noticed them, but I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, that's gross. Moving on.
Game of Thrones is very intentional with the stuff that it decides to show.
Okay.
The question I have for you all, and Greg kind of, and it even kind of touched on it, it seemed like at the end, there was like this reconciling of, Allison, when doing her toast, she's like, and I'm sure you'll make a fine queen, So in that moment, obviously before all shit hits the fan, but in that moment, it kind of seems like they're like, all right, this is how it's going to be from here on. We're all making our peace with one another. Did you all kind of get the same feel?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let somebody else go.
Oh, I did 100%. I mean, you feel like they were kind of like, in essence, burying the hatchet, because it was like, plus Viserys has made such a point. He's like, look, damn it, this is what it was going to be. That's where he kind of started before. We're a family. Let's, I've made my decision. Prior to all that, but he's like, I've made my decision, and this is what it's going to be. So, I think Allison was finally resigned to the fact of, hey, that's all right. Let's just roll with it, and or at least for that moment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do feel like there was some semblance of that. But as we all know.
Right. I think it was legitimate. I think they were authentic in their the adults. The children, however, just too much testosterone and ego going around. Okay, now I have a question about Eye Patch. First of all, in the episode before, I like to call that one Draco Malfoy wins dragon, because I was like, this is freaking Draco Malfoy, and it's like, okay, so Draco Malfoy grows up, and now he is big old person, and like, okay, it's intentional that they made him look like Daemon. Yes, I would think so, because he very much resembles, like, when they were standing off, it was almost like a mirror image of like the ego, the testosterone, the dominance, and he's the one that's like refuses to, like, pretty much both of them refuse to like let bygones be bygones, but he's the one that pushed all the buttons. But they're supposed to be like 17 to 21, and my brother looks like he's 40. You know what I mean? So
I know, right?
I was like, why does he look like the older sibling now?
And not just that, but the other kids look even younger. Like, to me, the difference between the two sets of kids is ridiculous. Not just sets, but
Not the cousins. Yeah, I 100% agree. I wanted to know that they were, I thought, like they were saying, the adult ones were authentic, and then the kids ones were kids being kids and stirring up the pot. But just out of curiosity, like, he does say, I don't understand what was so insulting about his toast when he says...
He called them strong. He called them something brave, this thing, and strong. Strong was the last name of their illegitimate father.
Yep.
Oh,
that was his surname.
Okay, that's what I was missing.
So
I was like, how is that an insult to call you strong? Okay.
Yeah, that was the name of the dad.
The big dude that beat up Kristen Cole in the courtyard a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
That beat him up, and Kristen Cole was totally baiting him. And he totally got the better of it, because Harwin did exactly what he wanted.
Well, he ended up getting burned alive, right? That guy?
Yeah, his younger brother ends up having him burned alive. Yeah, I know, dude. He's
dangerous.
Speaking of rats.
Yeah.
There's a lot of theories about that too. But yeah, so to call them strong boys, it's basically calling them a bastard to their face.
Yeah. See,
and
I'm like White Chocolate
notice,
Espresso though. I thought it was because he said boys. Like I thought, I was like, that's kind of insulting, but I can kind of see, I get.
No, well, it could be like a twofold, because you're talking strong, referring to like their bloodline, and boys saying, okay, well, you still are children as far as I'm concerned.
I know. So they always refer to them as nephews too. What up, nephews? And I'm like, aren't y'all close in age? Like, okay.
Might be your nephew, but my mom's about to be your queen.
Right.
And Tony in the chat room, he puts also what was the significance of putting the pig squarely in front of him, and that was the moment that triggered Eamon.
Yes,
because they put the pig in front of him, and you see Lucerys, and he's sitting there kind of like
giggling.
But they start snickering, they start laughing.
Yeah, because if you remember, like 2 episodes ago now, they made fun of him with the pig. Like, oh, hey, don't worry, we found you a dragon. But that's also why he was strutting his stuff when he did finally grab Vhagar. He grabbed the biggest, most dangerous dragon in all of Westeros. And of course it feels like hot shit.
But then again,
go ahead, sorry.
But then again, I'm like, and I kind of felt like in the same token, I'm like, yeah, he scored Vhagar. So I'm like, why would that really still get under your skin? Because you just basically went out and proved you're like the bigger baddie because you have the bigger baddie.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, y'all still are kids. Y'all are still young.
And there's ego, and they're full of testosterone, and they just want to fight.
Well,
it's all fun and games until someone loses an eye.
Yeah, literally.
He's a dragon.
And by the way, if you notice, I really like in this episode the subtle juxtaposition between Aegon and Aemon. Because basically, Alicent has been telling them all the same thing since they were small children. Aemon takes it very serious to the point where the first time you see him in this episode, what's he doing? Oh, he's training with Sir Criston Cole in the courtyard. By the way, Criston Cole beat Daemon in a tournament in the first episode of the season. So Criston got beat by Aemon, but he also... it's like you have reason to believe that, maybe Aemon is the younger, better fighter out of all of them. And the fact that after he does beat Criston, Criston says, "You'll make a wonderful tourney night, my lord." And he says, "I don't give a fuck about tourneys." Basically saying, I'm doing this because I'm going to wet my sword with blood, dude. That's what I'm training for. That's what I got the dragon for. He knows that there is a war coming, and he is preparing as such. The final point to that is when Viserys affirms Rhaenyra as the heir and Lucerys as the rightful heir to Driftmark. There's a point where you see Aegon, the would-be king, the fat boy, and when he announces that, he smiles. It's like a sigh of relief to him because he doesn't want to be the king. He doesn't want any of this at all. He wants to get drunk, have sex with random women. Like, that's all he's in this for. Whereas Aemon is preparing himself for the battle to come. And
you know what, though? I have to call bullshit on his fighting skills. You only got one eye. You don't have any sense of depth anymore.
True. Yeah. One thing about their fighting, too, they play for keeps when they
all
practice.
That subtlety that he was fighting with, he can't do that. He can't do that. It's not possible.
That's a good point.
Although there's something about being... You learn to compensate, maybe, and you just... You learn, okay, because it did have a portion of his life with the eye, so maybe he's been able to kind of train the differences. I don't know. One-eyed characters are almost a staple in Game of Thrones at this point. There's been a bunch of them throughout the story.
This is true.
Yeah,
I sword fight. It's what he was doing, and you can't do that with one eye. It's just not possible. You will get whooped by Sir Christian.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else.
That's where your line is for fantasy, right there. That's it.
That's all right. You can't play with one eye. If you don't ride the dragon all day long, I'm okay with that. Incest, whatever. You can't fight with one eye. No.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the dinner. We briefly spoke about it when we were talking about the cheers, but I guess we did talk about enough of the dinner. Trying to think, the cheers were just about all of it. What else on this episode then?
Well, no,
someone is challenging my knife skills.
Oh.
I will say one thing though. Do you notice it was very on the nose that as soon as Viserys leaves, like everyone's happy. Lucerys and Helena are dancing with one another. Damon is like laughing with Rhaenyra. Otto's clapping his hands, like, you know. And it was a nice moment for Viserys because before this man dies, he gets to look at his entire family happy and healthy and together, and right, you know, before they tear each other to pieces, you know. But
with one eye.
Yeah, with one eye. But the very moment that he leaves, well, that's when shit hits the fan. Right. And I found that to be very poetic in and of itself too. That it's like,
play nice in front of daddy. That deal.
Well, yeah, and I think that's like no matter what he does, it's just not gonna. He can't solve the problem. You know what I mean? There's just too many things going on. Too many things for people to argue about. There's hurt feelings that go back so far, and it's like no matter how many times he's like kiss and make up, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, not at all. So what White Chocolate Espresso is talking about? Yeah, and so Allison's handmaiden, I forget her name, but you see her walk up to Mysaria. Remember, that was the woman that was with Damon way earlier in the season, and she's like moved up. She's like she has the little birds like Varys had in the original Game of Thrones, but she's bringing information to Mysaria, and I did find that interesting. I don't know what that's building up to, but they definitely did make it a point to show you that. So I'm sure that will be something to keep an eye on moving forward. That there's someone inside. There's someone inside of the Red Keep who's giving all this information to Mysaria. And why does Mysaria want it? Like, what is she up to?
Is she on, or what is she thinking?
Can I ask one question about the premise of this whole episode? It starts out with Corlys